Recently, I was asked about the best company secretary model for a medium-sized organisation. They'd had a lot of turnover in the role, and so they were looking from the beginning as to what the best model might be. It's a really important question because a company secretary plays such an important ensuring an effective board. I often refer to the company secretary as the unsung hero of the boardroom. They really sit there very quietly but play such a key role in ensuring the board operates as effectively as it might. So what are some good models to look at? Essentially, I think there's three. The first one is an internal resource, a full-time company secretary who sits as part of the organisational structure. So the advantages of this are that the person knows the organisation, they know the people, they're usually professionally trained because that's been part of the position description. They're usually able to add also a bit of a value add that you'd like in the company secretary function because they can provide quality assurance of board papers, they might be able to coach executives on how to write board papers, and they're able to fulfil the role as a board and governance advisor and board confidant. Disadvantages of the full-time company secretary: it can be a costly role, it's a professional role, it's a full-time role, so it comes with a cost. There's also an issue around independence. So a company secretary's got a direct line of report to the board and then an indirect line for administrative matters to the CEO. But when a company secretary is internal in an organisation, it can be difficult to manage those relationships given that you effectively will have more information as a trusted advisor of the board than a lot of people in the management team will have, and indeed sometimes even the CEO. The second model is not to have a standalone company secretary in an organisation, but to combine the company secretary role with another executive role. And commonly that's the general counsel or the CFO. So advantages: again, that person should know the organisation, know the people in the organisation. They're accessible because they're there and able to be accessed, hopefully as and when needed. The disadvantages though is that invariably that other officer is not trained as a professional company secretary, so they might need to do some upskilling. Time can also be a challenge, trying to balance time between their substantive role as well as the company secretary role. And also there's that issue of independence and managing conflict. So as the confidant of the board, wearing the company secretary hat, they're in boardroom discussions that others in the organisation aren't in, and they need to be really careful as to how they manage that fine balance and make sure they keep board confidentiality. It can be particularly difficult where it's the CEO who is also the company secretary, and ideally that model is avoided because it just breaks down another check and balance in the governance structure. The third model is to have a professional contract company secretary. And this is a great model, particularly for smaller organisations, because what it means is that you're getting access to someone who is trained in being a company secretary, but it's a lot more cost effective, it's got more flexibility, and also that person is more independent to the organisation. So those issues around managing conflicts and confidentiality of information from the executive team are a lot easier to manage. Disadvantages: well, they don't know the organisation as well, or at least not at the beginning of their appointment. There might be issues with accessibility depending on the contractual arrangements that you have with them. And also you might have some issues that you need to think about in terms of transfer of succession and corporate knowledge. So which model's best for your company? It's worth thinking through each of those, the advantages, the disadvantages, but at the end of the day, it's a really important decision to get right because the company secretary is the unsung hero of the boardroom.